So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Code for America is and what we do. We don't do a lot of stuff on next generation broadband networks. So what I'd love to do is at some point have a conversation about what we could do in that space. And I think that's one of the places where we see a partnership opportunity with US Ignite to see what's possible. But let me back up. What do we do? So Code for America, we're a Peace Corps for geeks. It's a year-long fellowship program primarily. And what we do is we try to bring people like this. This is a guy named Max Ogden. He's a computer programmer. He's really great. To spend a year working with city governments to identify what's possible, right? So they go into City Hall and see what are opportunity areas for innovation. What can they do differently? And then they build tools. And so, for instance, in our first year, 2011, they built 21 applications. Last year, they built 50. This year, we'll see what they're going to do. The idea here, though, isn't about the tools itself. It's about what's possible, and it's about changing the culture. And what I wanted to talk to you today about was, well, how can you think about apps and the tools you build, the technology you build, as a means to an end, right? How can technology be a means to an end? And that's really what we've learned over the last couple of years, is that that's what we're able to do through our process. And I think with the work that you're doing in terms of technology and broadband, that's the opportunity you have, right? How can you leverage your tools to make a better world? I just want to flag, I put this slide up there because, you know, we're a nonprofit, we're a startup. Sometimes we get things wrong, and that's one thing that we want to be honest about. Our first year, we didn't tell the fellows that they had to pack ties. And so they actually all had to share one tie, the Boston Fellows, throughout the entire year because they didn't have enough ties on them. So the point is, as US Ignite gets off the ground, you start building this organization and this network, be honest and learn from your experiences. So I wanted to give a couple of examples of the challenges we've taken on and what we've learned. So this was a problem our fellows took on in the city of Boston. The parents in the city of Boston, right, have to figure out what schools to send their kids to. And this is what the city provided them beforehand, right? This brochure, this large pamphlet, 28 pages, to try to understand where to go. And looking at that right now, it's hard to even parse what that says, right? And so parents got frustrated, understandably so, right? They had no visibility into this process and no clarity in terms of, you know, what school could my kids go to? So our fellows went in there and they built this, Discover BPS. Very simple, right? I'm not a technologist, but even not being a technologist, I can tell you that the code powering this tool, Discover BPS, isn't complicated. It's basically a Yelp for schools. But here's what's really interesting about the tool. So we built this in 2011. The city has now put out an RFP to maintain this tool afterwards. And based on this tool itself, they've reformed the process by which you actually get to choose the school your kids go to. They made it simpler. For instance, they didn't have built-in walk scores, so they had like a hard rule that kids could go to a school that's a mile within their address, right? But a mile crossing the river is a lot different than a mile that's directly accessible via a bus, right? Or that's directly accessible via walking. And so they didn't have that built into the rules. But because they were able to see it on a map, because we were able to integrate walk scores, they were actually able to reform that process. And here's the other interesting thing about this tool. We asked our city partners afterwards, so say you had to build this through traditional RFP processes, through traditional procurement. They said it would normally take them 3 years and cost $3 million. Our fellows were able to build this in 6 weeks. And that's showing what's possible, right? That's institutional change. And now the city understands that that's what they can do. And Boston is now really a leader in civic technology. They're building lots of great tools and really engaging citizens in a new way. And that's what you're able to do once you know how technology works. And so what that experience taught us is that actually our impact, what we're able to do, isn't technology. Our impact is this, is that we can go inside a city hall, and this is our partner Jeff Friedman from Philadelphia, that's what he said, mysterious strangers who came and taught the city staff they had the magic in them all along, right? And that's what you can get done. And so bringing that now to US Ignite, the thing I would encourage you guys to think about is how can you build a network of those people, right? That's you guys and that's everybody you work with. How can you leverage that network for greater effects than just your individual contribution? So here's an example of how we are trying to leverage networks. So this is the website for the city of Honolulu. My favorite part is at the top there, that's an animated GIF that you can't actually do anything with. Like you can't click on it. It just rotates with pictures of the city. And we came in and the city was like, oh, please redo our website, right? Understandably so. But our model is that we send 3 to 5 developers and they get 11 months. And actually a lot of that is spent training or research. They don't have a lot of time to build. And as technologists, you can understand building an entire website for a city government in 5 months is hard. So we were initially hesitant to do it because it would be really tough to overhaul the entire city's web presence. But then we stepped back for a second and asked ourselves, all right, what's the end goal here? Is it really to describe the overall city piece by piece, or is it to answer the citizens' questions, right? Cities' websites and cities overall are organized vertically, program, department to department, right? When citizens don't think like that, they don't think about what the economic development office is doing. They think about, how do I get my business going in the city? So we redesigned the city website like this. Honolulu Answers. You basically put in a question and you get a straightforward, simple, human language answer, right? And so here it's how to get your driver's license, right? Which typically is blocks of text on a website that no one can parse. We make it bullet points, 5 steps. But so, okay, so that straightforward, cool idea, right? Let's make websites easy to read. Nothing novel. But here's what's really exciting about it. The fellows are teams of 3 people, right? They can't write hundreds of pages of a website. So how are you supposed to populate this entire platform? Well, we turned to the community. So we held this thing called a write-a-thon. You've probably heard of hackathons. You've probably gone to some of them beforehand. Well, we decided, what if you open up the doors to get more people involved in that process by just writing content for the city website? So this was the first one. About 60 people came out, and they wrote 150 answers for the city's website. And what's great about it is, even after the fellows have gone, people keep showing up. They've held these things once a month in that city and have added content every month. That's community, right? That's community as capacity, helping the city work better. But to my point around networks, here's what happened last month. Oakland took that code and redeployed it themselves, and then held their own write-a-thon at the National Day of Civic Hacking on June 1 and 2, where they did the same thing. And here, the point I want to make is, sometimes you can have the work you do where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? You can have impact at one place, but if you're able to network people together, bring them together, and share best practices, you can have a force multiplied impact. And so this is one of the answers that we had there. And so finally, I just want to share an unexpected story from our work in Detroit last year. So in Detroit, the challenge we were tasked with was vacant housing, right? How do you deal with the problem that Detroit, as a city, has its population been decimated, right? But they have all this infrastructure. So the fellows built this tool called Local Data, which helps people crowdsource information about vacant houses. But while they were in the city, they realized there was this other problem as well, which was that Detroit doesn't have a public school bus system. So kids have to take the public transit system to school, right? And Detroit gets really cold, really cold. And there's a real problem about crime there. And so there's a challenge for students waiting outside to get on the bus to go to school every day, right? And if they don't know when the bus is going to come, they're out there waiting in the cold, unsafe, for hours sometimes, right? So the fellow's like, well, we can build a real-time bus SMS app. Not amazing technology, pretty straightforward. But the fellows got really passionate about how to design the interaction, right? How to think about the right way to communicate this civic data to citizens. And so they built Text My Bus. And the reason I wanted to share this example is first because I like showing pictures of kids using technology. But the better reason is this. They got this response. So they sent out text to students saying, hey, your bus is coming in 10 minutes. Oh, your bus is arriving now. And people responded with an emoticon with a smiley face. And that's the power of civic technology. When you design it well, when you think about the interaction, and when you connect with citizens, you can excite them. You can make what was an interaction that got people scared, that got people frustrated, into something that's delightful, right? Something that's empowering. And so I guess my challenge to you as you think about building this next generation internet infrastructure is, how can you build a citizen experience that delights, that empowers, that gets people feeling better about their government, about their cities? How can you code for America? So thanks. I appreciate the time and excited for the conversation.